All right. Hello, everyone. So great to see you here. Before we get started, come say hi in the chat. Introduce yourself to another member. Say hello. Tell us what you're excited about. And we will jump right in. So like I said, if you're joining just now, come and say hi in the chat. The interactive chat is there for you. So interact with each other, interact with the content that I'm going to share, and we will go from there. Hello, Jaspreet. Nice to see you. So many people. This is great. How's everyone doing? Whether it's the morning, the afternoon, the evening for you, perhaps. I'm so glad that you took time to join us. These are really important because, you know, learning together, and it's fun to learn a new skill. It's fun to improve upon ourselves, and our community is about that. So let's jump right in. All right. So hello, everyone. I'm sure some of you might know me. Some of you might just be meeting me for the first time. If so, nice to meet you. It's great to see you here. So I'm Mary Daphne, and I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide on this exciting communication journey as the co-founder of explearning and Advanced English and the head of community here in explearning Academy. I am passionate about empowering you to connect with confidence and clarity, be it in your personal friendships and relationships or in your business social interactions. So that's what we do here. And in terms of my experience in education, you know, my own path has actually been filled with diverse experiences, as I'm sure many of yours have as well. So from nearly 2 decades in international corporate communications, television, broadcasting, education, ed tech, and to earning degrees in French and communication. That was my undergrad. And then I have 2 master's degrees from Bachiller University and Columbia University in New York City. And for about the past 16 or so years, I've had the immense joy of teaching communication, social skills, English, French, executive communications, and more. And I'm constantly learning and growing alongside all of you and exploring how technology, research, and proven methods can help you achieve your communication goals. And I don't know if people are familiar with it, but there's a Fulbright grant. So I was a recipient of a Fulbright grant, which took me overseas for the first time because I'm from New York. I'm born and raised in the U.S., but have a multicultural and multilingual background as well. But anyway, that Fulbright grant took me overseas, and that was really marking my first deep dive into cross-cultural communication in the professional world. You know, I grew up speaking and learning different languages, but this was really the first time in a professional capacity that I was doing cross-cultural communication. So that, in my mind, is one of those pivotal moments defining moments in my career. And, you know, that experience ignited a passion to weave intercultural understanding into the courses, the challenges, the lessons that I bring to you in our webinars and on YouTube and on Spotify, and the things that I've designed for my clients and students over the past 2 decades. And as a teacher trainer, I equip fellow educators with the tools and strategies to foster confident, culturally aware communicators who can thrive in our increasingly interconnected world. So that's just a little bit about me. And I would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. I see people already saying hi, so I'm so glad to see that. This is a community of practice, so you get to not only engage with the material and the content that I share with you and that we here at explearning Academy share with you, but you know, one of the amazing things about being part of a community of practice is that you get to leverage all of each other's amazing fields of experience, diverse backgrounds, you know, unique worldviews, and all of that. So I am so pleased to have everyone here And for those of you watching the replay, you are always welcome as well. So that's our little intro, and let us dive into our live class, shall we? Yes, I think we shall. So let me pop on over to my next little screen here. How is everyone doing so far? Do you want to leave me a little emoji in the chat? Maybe share your favorite emoji. What's your favorite emoji? I actually don't have a favorite one, I don't think. There are some that I use more often than others. I like the stars. I like the sparkly ones. Of course, the smiley face is, you know, classic. But share your favorite emoji in the chat so we're all in this together and we all feel ready. Maybe grab a beverage while you're at it, a little snack if you so desire, and let us chat about our topic today. All right, so let me get right into this. Okay, so we're talking about mastering business negotiations, which is part of improving your professional communication in English. That's, you know, our medium of our language. And so I want to welcome you to this comprehensive guide on mastering business negotiations. And we're going to equip you with the tools and the techniques to help you confidently navigate these types of business negotiations, business interactions, achieve successful communication outcomes, and build strong relationships. How's that sound? Good? Okay, I see some emojis in the chat. That's wonderful. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about essential phrasing for negotiating. You know, we love talking about communication. Not just what we say, but how we say it is, of course, very important. But in terms of, you know, phrasing, you can think about it in 4 separate categories. We've got the opening and the negotiation. So we're going to look at some key phrases for initiating that negotiation, whether, you know, you're starting people off in the negotiation or someone else is, but then you jump in, right? So how do you express interest? How do you set expectations? Level set on expectations is a huge one, right? How do you introduce the goals that you have for the negotiation? What about bargaining and concessions, right? Making counter offers, negotiating compromises, because of course, with every successful negotiation, there's got to be some give, there's got to be some take. That's what compromise is about. And then ultimately reaching agreements. Then we're going to look at closing the deal. So some key phrasing for summarizing our key points, because especially in a longer negotiation, you want to remind not only yourself, but the other parties in the negotiation what was discussed, what were some of your key points, and then express your satisfaction with the outcome, because hopefully it's a win-win. And lastly, cultural sensitivity. I mentioned earlier about the intercultural component, right? And so this is very important. We are an ever global society, world globally, right? And so it's really important that we understand how to navigate cross-culturally and interculturally. And of course, there will be some type of subcultural context within every type of interaction that we do. That includes people from different parts of the world. So how do you understand and adapt your language and communication style in different cultural contexts and to those different cultural contexts? Okay, so for starting, you know, to start off, opening the negotiation. So expressing interest could look something like, I'm very interested in exploring how we can work together on this opportunity, right? I'm looking forward to working with you. This is an amazing opportunity and I'm excited to partner on this. Okay, so you really want to express interest. And you don't have to do it in a contrived way. Of course, you want to be doing that in an authentic way as possible, but you do want to show that you're interested. And then level setting on expectations. You know, before we dive in, let's make sure we're on the same page about the key points to cover, because you can't talk about everything. There's no time for that necessarily. I mean, everyone's busy. You want to try to keep it as to the point as possible. So really setting expectations at the get-go. So I'd like to talk about A, B, and C, right? And then you list your points. Or I have 2 main points that I'd love to cover. What are your main points? What do you want to discuss? And, you don't have to go so far as to print out agenda, meeting notes. You could, but you don't have to. But you certainly want to have those in the back of your mind or somewhere even visible, in your note-taking app or a piece of paper or whatever you're going to go in with, if you have some notes. But you certainly want to discuss expectations. And then introduce your goals. My primary objectives for this negotiation are to secure favorable terms, okay? Maybe for the agreement or the contract or the partnership, and build a long-term partnership, right? So you show them that you really want this to be something where you're investing in each other and in the future of this partnership. It's not just like a one and done. So that also signals to the parties, like the people with whom you're negotiating, that, okay, this person is actually serious about making this work, and I can feel at ease about, maybe they making concessions and I'm going to be making some concessions and finding some sort of agreement, right? A mutually beneficial agreement. Okay, because if you contrast that with, oh, I'm not that interested, you wouldn't necessarily voice this, but your body language might show that. Like, I'm not that interested in having a long-term partnership with this company or, person or client. Then that's not going to reflect that well in the negotiation. It might be a little dicey. It might be a little bit, not as concrete as you would if it were something where I want to invest in this partnership, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So we talked about concessions, right? Maybe there's some bargaining as well, bargaining and concessions. So we've got counter offers, right? How about we adjust the terms to X rather than Y? I believe that would work better for both of us, right? So if you have some concerns, you voice them. And this is a very polite way of saying that. How about we adjust the terms to X rather than Y? Because I think it would be better for both of us. And what about negotiating compromises? Look, I understand your position. I get your position. And perhaps we can meet in the middle by compromising on Z. So again, there's that give and take. So you actually voice it. Say, look, let's both compromise on this item on the agenda. Does that sound like a fair solution to you? Right? In other words, are you okay with that? And it's great to voice that as well, because it shows them that you respect their opinion and that you really do want to make this work. You're not just trying to take everything. You're trying to give them a little too. So you've meet in the middle. And then reaching agreements, great. I think we found a mutually beneficial agreement here. Let's finalize the details and move forward together. That's ultimately what you want, right? You want a win-win solution. Not necessarily just to have, take all the wins yourself, but really to establish, okay, here's what you've got, here's what I've got. We're happy. We've met in the middle. We've both made some concessions, but we're both happy, right? That's really the ultimate outcome that we're looking for in a negotiation. And remember, it's an ongoing partnership a lot of times. You don't just do business with one person or one, company or client or vendor just one time necessarily, right? There's going to be some recurring business. So it's important, right? All right. And then what about closing the deal, right? So you've come to an agreement, mutually beneficial. Now it's time to close the deal. Okay. So for summarizing your key points, you can say, let's recap the main points that we've agreed on today. Okay. To summarize, we've reached a consensus on the following. So when you've reached a consensus, you can actually list what you've, come to an agreement on, all the points. Because again, we're summarizing here. Just to confirm, we've settled on these key terms, and then feel free to list them. I'd like to review the main points of our agreement. And then ultimately you get this in writing, right? Of course. All right, and then confirming the agreement, let's look at some phrasing. So if I understand correctly, we have a deal, right? Does this agreement sound acceptable to everyone? So you really want to make sure that everyone has a chance to actually voice their concerns at the end before you've finalized all the details and, everyone signs and you've pulled out your, you've set it in stone. Are we all in agreement on these terms? You give people an opportunity to say their piece, and if somebody has an epiphany mid negotiation and they really want to express something and maybe change something, or something's not okay in terms of the terms, then they have that opportunity. Can we consider this matter settled? Yes or no? Hopefully yes. All right, and what about expressing satisfaction with the outcome? Because you want to show that you're happy about it, especially, if you are, you want to show. If you're not happy, then you've got to voice that and revisit, and maybe there's more negotiation at play. I'm very pleased with the outcome of our negotiation. I'm excited to get started on this partnership. This agreement is a win-win for both of our companies. Right? It's okay to voice that. It's good. It's part of rapport building. It's part of, starting to invest in that business relationship, that partnership. I believe we've reached a mutually beneficial agreement. Oh, music to my ears, right? Isn't that so great when both parties are happy? Really great. I'm confident, or we're confident, if you're talking on behalf of, maybe you're the spokesperson for the company, or you're running that, you're spearheading that project, or whatever it might be. I'm confident that this partnership will be fruitful for all involved, right? So you're ending on a positive note. Thank you for your cooperation and flexibility throughout the process. It's great to acknowledge when people have been flexible and have adapted and have been able to, concede. And by you saying that, you're also kind of reflecting that you were being flexible and adaptable as well, right? So it's kind of like hinting at, I've been pretty flexible with this, right? Like, please acknowledge that. Exactly. All right. How are we doing so far? How are we doing? So this is some of the phrasing, right? Some sample phrasing, just to give you an idea. You don't have to copy it verbatim, but it's good to kind of have a framework, a little bit of an understanding of, how you can express certain things, especially with that professional polish, right? All right, I'm seeing great. I'm seeing very well. Excellent, excellent. So you'll have the replay. No need to, take notes. So you'll have all this information for you, and you can always practice, because practice makes progress, and progress makes us happy. Acknowledging cultural differences, right? Huge, very important. Like we said from the get-go. So you might just, say it point blank. I understand that our cultures have may have, if you're not sure, may have very different approaches to business, and I'm eager to learn and adapt, right? Because this is how you show that you might not be an expert, right? You're eager to learn. You're eager to adapt. You're not necessarily an expert in their culture. Maybe you're learning for the first time. Maybe this is the first time you're doing business with that culture or those cultures. And so you're saying, I'm eager to learn. So please feel free to correct me if I've misunderstood something. Okay, we skipped one. There we go. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and learn more about your cultural perspectives, right? So again, acknowledging. I'm aware that there might be nuances in communication that we need to be mindful of. Please feel free to point them out if I miss anything. Okay, so again, you're giving them an opportunity to say, oh, I didn't quite mean it that way, or, that's a different perspective that you might have, but in our culture, this is what this means. Okay, so you're letting them, chime in and even interrupt you politely if it's appropriate, right? If you've misunderstood things, or if you've missed something. And then in terms of adapting communication styles, which we do even when we interact with within a monoculture, right? So if you are from an American background and you're interacting with a group of Americans, everyone will still have these subcultures that they bring to the table, right? So you're even in that kind of setting, we still have to adapt our communication style. Not everyone communicates the same way, right? I give you an example of extroverts and introverts not necessarily interacting in the same way or communicating in the same way. Ambiverts, somewhere in the middle, right? Extrovert and introvert combined, yet again, has a different communication style, different way of communicating. So it's really important that we are open to adapting. That's really what makes us agile and flexible as communicators, which is of the utmost importance. Okay, so in my culture, or in my experience, we tend to be more direct, but I'm happy to adjust my communication style to ensure that we're all on the same page so that, it doesn't brush them the wrong way. It doesn't rub them the wrong way. If your directness kind of, has people startled or they're taken aback by it, you're voicing that, right? I understand that building relationships is important in your culture, and I am committed to investing time in getting to know you and your team, right? So you're showing that, in your culture that in their culture rather, rapport building, relationship building is really important, even if it takes, several meetings to do that. You're showing that you're aware of this and that you're committed to investing the time to, develop those relationships and build that rapport. Okay. I'm open to exploring different ways of communicating to ensure that we have a clear and respectful dialogue. And then in terms of showing respect for cultural norms, you can do this through body language as well, right? Leaning in, being engaged, asking open-ended questions, and then verbally, let's look at some phrasing. I've done some research on your culture's business etiquette, and I will do my best to adhere to those customs, right? It could be as simple as different treatment of eye contact. In certain cultures, you want to be making eye contact frequently, right? For example, in American culture, in business settings, in life settings, we make eye contact when we communicate. It's a sign of respect. In other cultures, for example, in Japan, that's not necessarily the same way of doing eye contact. You might not be looking directly in the person's eyes. You might be having your gaze kind of downward. There are certain instances where there is eye contact, but that has to do with, different sort of hierarchy. So you're saying, I've done some research. Again, please feel free to correct me if I've missed something or if I didn't quite get something, because they're the expert, right? You're just trying to be agile and fluid and flexible in your communication, right? I'm aware of the importance of making eye contact or not making eye contact in your culture, so I will be sure to respect that. Okay, again, you're showing that you might not be an expert, you're learning, but you're really trying your best and giving them the green light to correct you. That's okay, right? That's how you learn. That's how we learn. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to show my respect for your cultural traditions, right? And, keeping in mind, if there's ongoing business between you and those cultures, you've got to really make an effort because it's going to be happening quite a bit, and you're going to be expected to start to learn these cultural traditions and customs. Okay. What about when you're seeking clarification and avoiding making assumptions? We want to do this regardless of the cultural subcontext and background. I want to make sure I understand your perspective or your perspectives correctly. Could you please elaborate on that point? Could you please clarify, right? So if you didn't get something, voice it, right? Don't wait until the end or until after you've signed the contract, right? Or the agreement. Then it's too late. Then, it might not necessarily be too late. You can always remedy things, but it will make matters a little bit more complicated. So If you have something, don't let it sit in you, ask it, voice it, make sure you're on the same page as they, clarify, have them clarify, ask some open-ended questions, make sure that you can really see eye to eye on something. I'm not familiar with that cultural reference. Could you explain it to me? Okay, nothing wrong with saying, I don't know what this means. Please tell me what this means. I don't want to make any assumptions about your culture. Please feel free to correct me if I'm misunderstanding anything, right? Because if you don't say that, you run the risk of offending somebody, right? And you don't want to do that. So you're kind of giving yourself an easy out. Like, I'm not very familiar. I don't want to make assumptions. So if I do something that, upsets you in any way or offends you in any way, please let me know. Please let me know. And then building trust and rapport. We did a whole session on rapport last week. So if you want to know more about that, you should check out the replay. But essentially, these are the pillars of any business relationship, friendship. Trust and rapport have to happen, because, then that we also have respect out of that. I'm looking forward to building a strong and mutually respectful working relationship with you. Okay, so again, voicing that at the beginning, at the end, doesn't really matter, but you're showing that you want to make this work. You want to make this work. I value open communication and transparency, and I am committed to fostering that in our interactions. So right away, you're showing your values, right? What you value in communication and social interaction. And you want the communication to have there to be an open dialogue and transparency and engaging in an authentic way. I believe that by working together and respecting each other's cultures, we can achieve great things. Again, these are really nice positive notes to end on. Okay, so a lot of different phrasing for you here. Like I said, don't feel like you need to memorize any of this, but it gives you an understanding of kind of the gist, like what we're doing with this, where we're going. We're adapting our communication styles. We're showing respect for cultural norms, for differences. We are trying to seek clarification and avoid making assumptions, because when you make assumptions, that will lead to miscommunications, right? All right. So in terms of preparing, we always want to prepare because, if we fail to prepare, then we basically, kind of prepare to fail. Failure is not a bad thing, but, in the context of using failure as a stepping stone to learning and teachable moments. But if you can prepare ahead of time, you set yourself up for success. You don't fail knowingly, in other words, right? So same with successful business negotiations. So you first want to do your research, right? Research as thoroughly as possible your counterpart, right? Understand their needs. What are they looking for? What do you think they will be, they will want out of this, a negotiation? What outcome might they be looking for? And then also define your own goals and see if there's any alignment. Okay, are there any overlapping themes? Are there any overlapping kind of goals? Or are they very, very different, right? So try to start getting in that mindset, and it comes with research and preparation. And then you want to develop a negotiation strategy. So you first have your clear objectives, right? What are those for you? What are your expectations from this? What do you hope to get out of this negotiation? And then identify three, if you can, or a few potential areas for compromise. What are you willing to, compromise on? Let them have, in other words, right? And you've got to find at least a few, because otherwise it's going to make it very difficult to give them something. You know what I mean? So really those concessions are important, because they are also going to make concessions for you. And the part of the negotiation is that back and forth, right? I'm willing to, give you that, but I can't, do anything about this item. We've got to keep it that way. Like, for example, I can't budge on budget. The budget's got to be, it's set in stone. Or I'm flexible on budget, but I can't we can't be 2 weeks later than the deadline that's already written there. So it really depends, right? What are some things that you're willing to compromise? And then plan your opening and closing statements, because that's what you want to, start with a bang, end with a bang, make it really strong, iterate on that. So you've got to have a strong opening and a strong ending. And then prepare potential counter offers, right? Think about what they might object. What might they say no to, right? What might be a stretch for them? So you've got to now, right, get into their head, get into their shoes and think about, okay, well, they have, basically unlimited budget. So I'm not that concerned about they, saying no to what our budget, our budget, hopes to be for this, but I know that they're stricter with something else, right? So what could that be? What are some potential objections that they might have? And then what you want to do is plan for it, right? So you develop persuasive counter arguments. So you say, I know that you are, really keen on keeping the budget this way, but I've done some research and I think that we can actually make this work by, using some budget from another department, or last year's budget we didn't fully use it. So finding some counter arguments, and that way you can maintain your strong negotiation position. And then lastly, practicing, right? Practice your phrasing, practice your communication, rehearse key phrases. You don't have to memorize it. You don't want to be stiff and robotic, but you do want to be really familiar with what you're going to say. And it's a great idea to practice, okay? So that will help you, really smoothly convey and confidently convey what you want to say and really deliver on those key points that you are hoping to share with people, right? Practice, practice, practice. All right, and in terms of initiating the negotiation process, so when we start off, we definitely want to have a positive tone, right? You don't want to walk into a negotiation with like a grumpy face, negative body language, having a scowl on your face, or just being a little bit disinterested, or maybe you got a phone call with some not so great news right before going in. That's tough. I get it, but try to recalibrate, try to switch gears, maybe, do some jumping jacks, run up the stairs, grab a cup of coffee if you have time to like reset, right? Doing something active is a great way of resetting. That's why I said jumping jacks might be something you do, but I get it if you're in your, work attire. One, it might not be comfortable to work out in, like do a mini workout. Two, you might get a little sweaty. So maybe something else, but really trying to like jolt yourself out of that negative headspace. Because at the end of the day, compartmentalizing for what it's worth is important. State your objectives as clearly as you can, right? Articulate your goals. What are your expectations so that it's clear and concise? You don't have to go on and on and on, but 3, right? Think of things in 3. If it's okay if it's fewer than that, don't exceed 3 because it's like too much sometimes. So 3 objectives, right? What are they? Ask open-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are a dead end. They don't really lead anywhere. The negotiation is a back and forth, right? You're inviting them, the open dialogue to ensue, right? So, encouraging your counterpart to share their insights, their perspectives, what are their needs, and then that way you can promote mutual understanding. You both are getting something out of this. It's a win-win for everybody. And then show that you're flexible. Show that you're willing to compromise. That's why in the preparation phase, we have you think about what are some things that you're okay to give them, that you're okay to compromise on. What will you not under any circumstance budge on? What are you flexible on, right? So write those out, circle them, highlight them. You don't have to bring that with you to the negotiation, but again, practicing it so that you know exactly what you're willing to budge on and what is an absolute like no-go. It has to be this way, or we're not compromising or not negotiating, right? But show a positive attitude and a willingness to work together. You're collaborating, right? It's a mutually beneficial solution that you're both after. So make sure you voice that. They're going to be much more willing to give you, to make concessions for you if you have that attitude. Okay. But if you're like, I'm not going to concede on anything, I'm not going to budge, what incentive do they have to do that for you? Right? Not much. So something to keep in mind, right? The more you give, the more you get. Okay? It's like a dance. It's like a little dance. All right. And of course, listening is a huge part of it. Active listening, we always talk about. So really make sure you understand not only what they're saying, but how they're saying it. What's their body language like? What's their tone of voice like? What's their pacing like? What is their breath rate, right? Even their breath rate, right? Like, that's a mouthful. What's their breath rate like, right? And can you get clarity on things that you're not clear about? Summarize some key points. It shows that you understand and you're on the same page. Paraphrase their statements so that you are accurate, about what you understand from what they're sharing. Be empathetic, right? If you need to validate, acknowledge, right? Their concerns, validate their concerns. You really want to show and demonstrate understanding and respect for their worldviews, their perspectives, their thoughts, their insights, their opinions. Even if you don't agree with them, you still have to show respect, okay? Like, I understand your point of view, or I see where you're coming from, or I didn't quite understand your perspective until now. That example you shared really drove it home for me. Thanks for sharing that. I understand so much better now where you're coming from. And then you really do, because again, rapport building, right? The more rapport you have, the better the negotiation will go. It's just how it works. So emphasize common ground and those shared goals. Okay, so that's why, again, remember when we talked about preparing? Think about if there's any alignment, right? Is there any alignment with the kinds of goals you might have? And then, you are going to confirm or deny that in the negotiation process. So it might not be clear until you actually get in the room where the negotiation happens, but you've thought about it, in other words. And then be assertive, right? This is a business interaction. You want to show your assertiveness and your confidence. It doesn't mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean being argumentative. It means being confident and assertive. So articulate your own position, provide evidence. If you have data, even better, right? That's evidence. Anecdotal evidence is okay too, but it's not as strong as tried and true data. So numbers, percentages, graphs, hard numbers, things like that. And then also logical reasoning. You want to say, okay, make it logical for people to understand. If it's not easy to follow, if the logic's not there, then they're going to wonder I'm not really sure about this. Okay, so be assertive. Don't be aggressive or dismissive or condescending, of course. Respect always. And then focus on finding solutions that will address both of your interests. Okay, because it's a win-win. Win-win. And then what about if there are some objections and counteroffers? It happens, not every negotiation is super smooth. There will be often times where you're going to have to handle some objections with grace. So acknowledge the objection, right? Demonstrate understanding and acknowledge the validity of their concerns. I totally get it. You wouldn't say totally get it. It's not as businessy, but I understand your perspective. Let's allay some of your concerns. Okay. Ask for clarification. So if you really don't understand the objection, why are they responding the way they are? What do they object on? Gather more information. Okay. Collect information and then address the objection. So, you might have some facts or evidence or alternate solutions for them that will address their concern, that will put them more at ease. And always, always maintain a positive tone. Don't get defensive. Don't get aggressive. Don't get, upset. Try to be level-headed, because if you keep your emotions about you, you'll have a much easier time coming up with solutions and being collaborative. And if they need to take a moment to calm down, maybe they're, heated, then say, why don't we take 5? And then go get some water, go get some coffee, run up the stairs, go outside for fresh air. However much time you need, take it. Or if you notice that they need, right, that's being really perceptive. Okay. Keep the emotions, lower, not heightened. Okay. Maintain that positive tone. Okay, good. And then some persuasive techniques for reaching agreements. So, we want to build trust and rapport. That's always a very important aspect of any type of social interaction you have, including business negotiations. So you can show empathy, respect, genuine interest. Don't ask somebody about their camping trip if you're not interested in knowing how it went. People know when you feign interest, when you're just trying to, pretend and check off a box like, oh, I built rapport. No, that's not rapport, right? That's not building rapport. So genuine interest. Framing solutions in a positive way, really thinking about focusing on the benefits and the advantages of your proposal. What are they going to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? Highlighting that mutual understanding and agreement, how it's a win-win for both of you, okay? Logical arguments, logic. So present evidence, hard numbers and facts, data, logical reasoning, because this bolsters your claims, right? This gives your claims gravitas, and it helps persuade your counterpart. And then making concessions strategically. Again, what are you willing to budge on? What is an absolute no? Do you have a BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? Be selective about what you're okay giving them. And that shows them, it demonstrates the flexibility that you have, but you also keep those core interests, there intact, because you don't want them to be overlooked. At the end of the day, you do want this to benefit you as well. It's a win-win. And then some cultural considerations in global negotiations, right? When we have, multiple different cultures in the room. Thinking about, cultural values that come from individualistic societies versus collectivistic societies. Individual cultures might be more direct in terms of the way they negotiate, where collectivistic societies are more indirect. So there's going to be more saving face. There's going to be less, less directness. So really being aware of what the decision-making process and the communication style would look like, right? Knowing what you know about collectivistic versus individualistic societies and what you bring to the table, what you are part of, it's important to be aware of this, because it will make the negotiation run that much smoother. And then time orientation, right? Linear versus circular cultures, very important, right? We treat time differently in different cultures. And so thinking about, okay, well, deadlines, scheduling, is it more about relationship building, or is it more about getting, making sure that we meet the deliverables, meet the deadlines? What is that? What does that look like, right? What's that dichotomy there? And then power distance, formal versus informal. There might be some hierarchy, right, based on those cultures. So adjusting your communication and behavior based on that, right? So it might be you don't necessarily make eye contact with someone who is more senior than you in that culture, but in your own culture, you do. So being aware of this, right? Because it will create better rapport. It will create that trust. You will get to yes faster in the negotiation. So things to consider. And then what about how do we find win-win outcomes? That's the goal, right? We want win-win. So collaboration is the name of the game. Focus on identifying common interests, right? What are you going to, highlight as part of the alignment that we discussed earlier. What solutions will benefit both you and they, right? It benefits them as well. So what could be something where you see eye to eye on, where it's like, okay, this is a clear win for both of us. And then being creative, right? It might take some time. It might not run very smoothly at first, but if you start talking about, being collaborative, being creative about what kinds of solutions you can explore, alternative solutions, compromises, because really thinking about what those priorities are and then trying to find solutions for both of your sets of priorities. And then we've come to the conclusion and key takeaways. So mastering business negotiations is really about combining knowledge, skills, and cultural sensitivity. And by understanding our key phrasing and vocabulary, preparing thoroughly, right? Always being prepared for something and practicing effective communication strategies, you will be able to confidently navigate your business negotiations, build that rapport, create lasting partnerships and relationships, and then ultimately have your successful communication outcomes. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We don't want to just win for us. We want them to win too. It's a win-win. Win-win for all. That's how you keep that partnership going. That's how you get the people to come back. That's how you keep doing business with that company or those clients or those vendors. And it's a happy time for everyone. Happy times for everyone. Okay, so how are we doing so far? I feel like we covered a lot, as we tend to do in these live classes. So again, like I said, go back, watch the replay when it's up, think about how you can apply this to your own work, to your own, negotiations, to even in your personal life too, right? A lot of these, it's in the business context specifically that we have here, but a lot of them do translate into the social context as well, because we negotiate, I wouldn't say necessarily every day, but it could be something like you and your partner deciding what to cook for dinner, right? That could be a negotiation, as simple as that. So, or where, your kids want to go on vacation or, whatever. So we negotiate. We absolutely negotiate. And in a business setting, we've got phrases like this, we've got structure, we've got strategies and tips, and thinking about the cultural overtones, super important, super duper duper important. So I want to tell you a little bit about our year-long communication skills bootcamp. If you liked the content and you want more of this kind of interaction and these resources and these tools to help you not only in your professional life, but also in your everyday, then I really encourage you to sign up for our year-long communication skills bootcamp. You've got live classes and webinars. You've got live interactive chats, video call meetups in your interest groups. You can be part of several interest groups, not just one. Monthly challenges and web courses, multiple, that you do at your own pace. And you have a clear structure there to guide you. Opportunities to submit, feedback and have a community of practice and so forth. So that's a little bit about our year-long communication skills bootcamp. And if you are, curious about finding out more, then you can just head on over to our website, academy.explearning.co. You might know it by now. I do say it frequently so that you're aware. And so, yeah, you can also just scan this QR code and it will take you to our app as well. So you can have Explearning Academy on the go. Just check in, use it on your phone or your tablet or devices, in addition to your computer, your laptop, your desktop, whatever it is. So that's a little bit about that. And I love this quote from one of our members: best investment, you won't regret it. I feel like that really sums it up really nicely. As Mireya says, it's an investment, right? You're putting in the time, the energy, the resources to for your professional development, for your personal growth. That's why we're here. That's why you showed up today. You're investing in yourself. So investing in yourself is one of the best investments you can make. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. I'm a big proponent of that. So well done on joining me today for this. And thank you so much, all of you. I see lots of lovely notes in the chat. So wonderful. And like I said, watch the replay. And I will see you very soon for another live class, for another lesson, and I might even see you in the community. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.